of this video is to create a new wall type with multiple layers. To do this, we will use the technique of duplicating an existing wall type and editing it to add the required layers to the wall. We'll assign materials, thickness and function to the layers to define the build-up of the wall. And finally, we will select the existing external walls in the model and swap them for the new wall type. I have the exercise file Create Wall Types open, and we can see the external walls that need editing are shaded in grey in the view. As walls are system families, we cannot load a new wall type into a project, so we must duplicate an existing wall type and edit it to suit. If I select one of the existing external walls we have in the model, we can see from the type selector at the top of the properties palette that this is a basic wall and a generic 8-inch wall type. The other wall types that are available from the type selector have all been created within the template that was used to build this model from. The wall that we're going to create requires an external insulation system on metal stud, and that's not available in the type selector to us, so we would duplicate an existing wall and create it. With one of the external walls selected, I'll choose Edit Type from the top of the Properties palette to access the wall's type properties. And across the top we can see the type name here, generic 8-inch, and next to it the duplicate button that we'll use to create our new wall type. So we'll go ahead and click duplicate, and then we'll assign the new name of external wall EIFS on metal stud. And we'll select OK to create that new wall type. So now we need to edit the assembly of the wall to add in the extra layers, and to do this, from the type parameters on the construction panel, we'll click Edit next to Structure to access the Edit Assembly settings. So here we can see the layers that make up the current wall, and at the bottom of the box we can click the Preview button to enable the preview, which will make it easier for us to see what happens as we add our new layers in. So we'll start by changing the thickness of this existing layer to 6 inches. And before we add the new layers, we can see at the top it's labelled exterior, and at the bottom is the interior side. We can see we have the layer numbers showing their order, and then below that we have the buttons to insert and move new layers around. So we'll start by inserting a new layer, and this will appear in layer 2 just above our existing layer. We'll set the thickness to be 3/4 of an inch. And we can see that appear in the preview on top of the existing layer. So now we'll add our next layer in, so we'll click Insert, we'll get another layer. And this is going to represent our external insulation, so we'll change this to 2 inches thick. And we can see that appear in the preview. So now we'll move that up to above the core boundary. So making sure we have layer 2 selected. From the buttons beneath the layers, we'll click the Up button to move this above the core boundary. And we can see in the preview now the green line, which is indicating the location of the core boundary within the layers of the wall. So now we need to add the internal finish. So we'll select layer 5, the core boundary layer, and we'll choose Insert, which will add a new layer just above that. So we'll click the down button to move that below the core boundary, and we'll set its thickness to be 1/2 inch. So now we can see that's appeared in the preview, and we can see the green line for the lower core boundary and obviously the upper one as well. So next we'll assign the materials into those layers that we've just created. Looking at the material column, we can see they are currently set to have the by category material. And to change this, we'll need to launch the material browser and select a new material. So we'll select by category on layer 1, and from the ellipses button that appears, we'll launch the material browser. We can see there's a lot of materials available in this project. So to make it easier, we'll use the search bar at the top and we'll search for insulation. And from the materials that then appear in the list, we'll choose the EIFS exterior insulation material. And we can see its properties here, but we don't need to make any changes, so we'll click OK, and this will be assigned into layer 1, and we can see that in the preview as well. So now for the next layer, which is layer 3, we'll click by category again, and then from the ellipsis button, we'll launch the material browser. And this time we'll search for plywood, and then we'll choose the plywood sheathing material and click OK to assign this onto the next layer. And once again we can see that appearing in the preview as well. So for layer 4, we'll choose by category and again launch the material browser, and this time we're going to search for the stud material, and we'll choose the metal stud layer, and once again we'll click OK to assign this into that layer. So for the final layer, this is going to be our gypsum wallboard, so once again we'll launch the material browser and search for gypsum this time, and then we'll select the gypsum wallboard material and click OK to assign that to layer 6, our final layer. And then we can see in the preview that we've got all of those materials applied onto the layers. So finally, we now need to assign the function into each layer. And we can see that they're currently all set to structure. And if we select the function on layer 1, we get the drop-down list. And we can see that we've got 5 functions here: structure, substrate, thermal air, finish 1 and finish 2. And in the parentheses we can see numbers 1 to 5, and these denote the priority order for when we make junctions between different walls. Number 1 is the highest priority, and we'll cut through objects of a lower priority to create the join between those different walls. So for our exterior insulation, we'll choose finish 1, which has the priority of 4. For the plywood sheathing, we'll assign that in to be the substrate function. The metal stud layer, we'll leave that as structure with the priority of 1. And for the gypsum wallboard, we'll set that to be finish 2 with a priority of 5. So now that we have all of our layers created with their thickness and materials, we'll click OK to save those changes. We're back in the type properties, so we don't need to make any more changes here. We can see we have the exterior function already selected from the wall that we duplicated, so we'll choose OK once more to now save the changes to this wall type. And that's been applied to the wall that we had selected when we started this process. However, if I click off of this wall, we'll see that it's still shaded in grey as they were originally. And this is due to the view being set to a coarse detail level. So to change this, we'll go to the view control bar at the bottom of the view, and then we'll select medium from the detail level. And then zooming into the wall here, we can now see the layers that we created onto that wall type, and they're now being displayed in the view. So this leaves us now just to change the rest of the external walls in this model. So we'll select one of those, and then from the right click menu, we'll choose Select All Instances Visible in View. And this will now select the remainder of those external generic 8-inch walls. So now from the type selector, we can scroll up and we can find the external wall EIFS on metal stud that we've just created, and it's also in the most recently used types list, so we just need to select that, and then that wall type is applied to these walls, so we'll click in space to deselect them. And now zooming in, we can see how those layers have been applied and the junctions that they're making with the existing walls and at the corner there.